Hello and good morning, LinkedIn. We are 3 days away from MWC. It's going to be over in Barcelona, where Microsoft is going to unveil the third generation of their Microsoft HoloLens device. And I wanted to kind of review a few things no one's discussed right now is how, I guess number one is how Microsoft going to resolve the Vergence accommodation conflict. It's an issue that we have across every single virtual reality and mixed reality transparent display device. And how are they going to attack that? But first we need to go back and actually define what VAC is. There's many people out there who don't understand why they feel, why they experience motion sickness when they step inside a virtual reality application for a certain period of time, and I'll attempt to explain that. Number two is how many depth sensors is the next 2.0 going to have. We know the Azure is going to be very highly resolute with a 10-bit A/D, and I'll show you some of those specifications in a sample video, but is there going to be depth cameras on the back? Let's dive into that as well. And also spatial light modulators, liquid crystal on silicon or DLP. What is the resolution of the next 2.0 device, and the inherent characteristics of these spatial light modulators and how they negatively affect or positively impact the overall experience. So let's jump into Vergence accommodation conflict first. We've had so many people request this, and let's go ahead first. Now, it's very common knowledge that our depth perception stems from the fact that we have two eyes, right? And they both infer depth from the displacement of objects from two different images, two different angles, called binocular disparity. Now, this large displacement is a parallax, which means the object is much closer. If there's small or no displacement, which means the object is much further away. But we actually infer depth with more cues than that, so let's go ahead and dive in with that right now. Now, generally, accommodation, and let's go back to this. Now, our eyes, as I'm referring to this here, are truly a marvel of engineering. Now, camera lenses, as you look through them on your phone or a DSLR, they have multiple optical elements, and some are movable. So to change the focus, the elements move in reaction to one another, right? So the eyes only have one single element, which is your lens, and it's a muscle. It's soft and squishy, so in order to change the focus, the special muscles need to pull or relax the lens, changing its shape, right? Like this, or changing its shape like this. Now, the real conflict from this is our eyes attempt to converge. So in the real world, accommodation and Vergence are always in sync. But when you have a display like this on right here, or a virtual reality headset, it's a completely different story because the screen itself is a fixed distance from your eyes, right? So it can be very, very, very close, but the projected image could be 2 or 3 meters out. And the actual screen right here is much, much closer, right? But the optics make it appear like it's further out there. So your eyes remain focused on the screen, but the virtual object out there is trying to converge, and your eyes are trying to accommodate, right? So it's constantly going like this, back and forth on your lens. And what does that cause? Eye strain. It also causes nausea and even illness. You know, you can get your stomach sick because your eyes are doing this constantly, trying to refocus and accommodate, right? Like if you have two different images here, and there's a really easy analogy for this. Just go stand next to a window where it's generally like infinity out on the horizon, and focus on your finger for 10-15 seconds, and then pull your finger away and focus out, or keep your finger there and focus all the way out to infinity, and see how long that takes. Now try to focus between your finger and back constantly and tell me how you feel. Eventually you'll start to feel a little sick. And we need to fix that. And you know, Magic Leap attempted to resolve this issue with 2 different focal planes with 6 diffractive waveguide elements, 6 LEDs. They also have a beam splitter which collimates that light to a 45-degree angle, because most waveguides require 45 degrees internally to refract. They call it TIF. But the problem with that is it's having 2 different focal lengths is not enough. We need much more than that. You have one focal length here and one out to infinity. With our eyes infer thousands of depth cues normally. So it's not an easy way to fix that at all. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of these things right now. So let me drop out the conflict, the convergence, and accommodation. And what I want to do right now is jump into the Azure depth sensor. So let's come back up here where I see my VAC. Let's get that out. And let's go into the depth sensor now. So on the depth sensor, I had a really big question when I saw this picture was, why do we have 2 depth cameras on the back of the HoloLens? Because you know that the Azure depth sensor is just one multispectral camera, which is going to be on the front. It's going to take place of all these other cameras here. They're going to basically compile them all into one little camera. But why are these on the back? Well, the Qualcomm 850 supports two 16 megapixel cameras that can infer depth from stereo, right? Just the same way, binocular disparity. And why is this very critical? Because when you're playing an application or you have something in front of you, if you move your hands behind you, the tracking cameras lose your hands. You see this in the Vive Focus right here, so I'll show you. In the Vive Focus here, you actually see two different cameras here, but if you move your hands back, there's no tracking here. There's none at all. Now, in the new Oculus Quest, they said that they've increased the field of view there to try to accommodate that, but it's still a significant issue. You need depth cameras on the front and the back for 360-degree applications. It's very important, to continue to design these things like that. So in the Azure specs, let's take a look at the Azure specs here. And let me get rid of that. So the differences between the new Azure camera that's going to be on the front of the camera, of the HoloLens 2.0, versus the old Connect 2.0, if you're looking at just the pixel array itself is 1024 by 1024. That's the active pixels versus 524 by 424. And the pixel pitch, which is really the size of the pixel and the boundary between the next pixel, on the original Connect version 2 was about 10 micrometers. On the new Azure, and this is 5 months old, they could have improved those processes by now, it's 3.5 by 3.5. That's incredible. That means in point cloud generation, and I'll show you a little video of that, it's incredibly accurate. You can kind of see behind me here how amazing that is. It can see the wrinkles on your shirt. It's truly incredible. And that dynamic range increase versus the old Connect is going to make a significant difference in just the calculation and the ability to infer depth for spatial mapping and environmental awareness. But let's go ahead and take a look at that video real quick on the cameras. And what I'm going to say right here, that I believe they're going to have two cameras on the back and the Azure camera on the front, which supports a 4K RGB and a 1 megapixel depth camera. Right? So they'll have that in the front, and then they'll have ones in the back, and you have 360 degrees of depth sensing. That is going to be amazing. I can't wait. Let's take a look at that video. Let's get rid of the Azure specs, and let's take a look at here. That's not my video. It should be right here. All right, so get this to move over a little bit. It doesn't want to move over. All right, so you can see that here, that's a TOF coupled with the highest modulation frequency, low power consumption, about 200 milliwatts with global shutter. And you can operate it outside, but again, from 20 centimeters, very, very close, out to 6 meters with automatic pixel gain per selection. It's an incredible advancement. It's going to disrupt, all of these other depth camera companies out there.
Basically,
this is going to come through like a wrecking ball. It's truly amazing. I can't wait to see it. We're hoping to get one of these as a proof of concept before they release the HoloLens, so we can showcase this to you guys, so you can see what it actually looks like. As we try to educate you guys on just the small pieces of this, and that's what really gets exciting to me, is about finding these transformational products, but then breaking them down into the smallest pieces and in detail and analyzing them. It's really amazing. I love it to death. So now let's look at these spatial light modulators. Okay, so right now in the HoloLens and the Magic Leap, we have 720p Lycos, liquid crystal on silicon, made by Omnivision. The Magic Leap is actually a custom chipset. So if you see here on this guy, this is a custom resolution chipset that they actually created just for Magic Leap. And the liquid crystal on silicon here is, again, 720p. Now, what are the major differences between the two? And I guess what it really comes down to is cost. Now, Lycos is the cheapest of the options out there between, DLP. It has a higher power consumption. It's a little bit bulkier, and the contrast is high. There's always pros and cons, but the reason most choose Lycos is just because it's cheaper. But there are inherent downsides to it, which is really sequential color. They call it FSC, field sequential color. And what that means is it has a certain refresh rate. So it has to sequence the colors and the LEDs. So you'll have red, green, blue, just like on your diffractive waveguides. So you can see here on these, you'll have that refractive collimator and the Lycos SLM, the spatial light modulator, and then the LED source. So what that's actually doing is sequencing the colors, red, green, blue. And then as you're seeing them across the eyes, as you move your eyes across the diffractive waveguide, if there's any ambient lighting or if you move very quickly, depending on the refresh rate, you'll start to see chroma aberrations or artifacts. You'll see these really these glowing levels around your so-called hologram. It's really not a hologram, it's just Pepper's ghost. It's a reflection. But why that's important is because Lycos is really only designed to operate maybe up to 120 hertz, right? And DLP can go much faster than that, so you don't have any issues with sequential color with DLP. And even if you try to go up to 120, you're still going to see those those chroma aberrations no matter what. So no matter what you do, you're going to have that issue there. And I'm hoping they come up with some kind of other solution. With Avigent, they use DLP, so they just completely went out of that. And then Birdbath Optics to kind of get rid of some of the issues inherent with the Magic Leap design or the HoloLens design. But I'm very interested in seeing how they resolve these issues with the diffractive waveguides. Moving forward, is it another type of technology, that we're going to need? The micro displays at 8K that Apple's working on is limited in field of view. It's at 30 to 35 degrees field of view. It needs to be very, very close to your eye in order to do that. And then you have all that processing power issues. So, man, at the end of the day, you're trying to get rid of all of these additional accessories in the optical system. You don't want to have to always collimate the light. You don't always have to use, a mirror like a Lycos or spatial light modulator. You want to basically simplify these designs. And the reason I'm talking about that is because I'm always searching for other types of information out there. And this weekend, I think I watched this video by Suni Jolly at Magic Leap. This was his dissertation at MIT. The guy's brilliant in the MIT Media Lab. But he talks about near-to-eye guided wave electroholography, which doesn't need these additional optical elements to form an image near a true holographic image out in space. And when we review these thesis contributions, he also discusses utilizing femtosecond laser direct writing to fabricate these chips at your house or in some kind of a lab instead of very expensive lithography. But they're using these surface acoustic waves, and then they combine them with interferograms to create a hologram. Now, initially in his dissertation, he did this with just a static image, but now they're trying to do it with a dynamic image with a true volumetric hologram via these Bragg reflection gratings that you can see up here, on this side, on the output. So will it be just a completely different technology? The Microsoft HoloLens is not going to have this, right? He just talked about this a little while ago. But moving forward, as we start to see the iterations maybe a year or two down the line with Magic Leap, potentially this is where they're going. We know fiber scan displays is not going to work. It has to, it needs to be near the speed of sound, to even, generate a resolution that's higher than 720p. I think they also talked about LEDs and spirals. You need like 80 LEDs on a chip, really high power LEDs. Nobody even makes that right now. Karl Guttag talked about that in one of his blogs. So, but I enjoy diving into this because this is potentially how we're going to get to true near-eye holographic displays. Maybe not tabletop, and Suni Jolly talked about the computational requirements and bandwidth limitations that occur when you have something that's standing, but near to eye technologies and possibilities, we only need about 10 million pixels for that from a spatial light modulator. And with one of his designs, I think the maximum for a Lycos was 125 million pixels, and with one of his, he was talking at 400 million to a gigapixel. So it's pretty incredible. I hope you guys enjoyed this morning. Let me know if you have any questions. Obviously, I'm really excited to see the implementations and design enhancements and characteristics of the next HoloLens 2.0. And just as we move forward in the spatial computing paradigm, all of this stuff is so exciting. So thank you guys for tuning in as always, and hope you have a great morning. Thank you. Bye-bye.